An ugly win and even uglier press conference, but the Washington Commanders have their second win of the season. Should fans be happy, and why I'm okay with what Ron Rivera had to say on Thursday night? All of that right now on the Locked On Commanders podcast.
Your daily podcast on the Washington Commanders, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome in, Commanders fans. Welcome to the Locked On Commanders podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We're your daily podcast covering the Washington Commanders. We're free and available on all platforms, including YouTube and the WUSA 9 Plus app on your Roku or Amazon Fire Stick. And of course, we thank you for making us your first listen or your first view of the day. I am David Harrison, your host for today's episode and a credentialed member of the media writing for Commander Country, a part of Sports Illustrated's Fan Nation's family of sites. Today's episode brought to you by LinkedIn. LinkedIn Jobs help you find the candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnfl. I am going to be talking about Ron Rivera's outburst in the postgame press conference on Thursday. But while that's what a lot of people are really talking about, to me, that's not the biggest story from Thursday night. So we're going to talk about the biggest story, which is, to me, the Washington Commanders getting their second win of the season. And at the end of the day, that is what should be the main focus, but not the only focus. You get what I'm saying? Yeah, it's an ugly win. There's no way to really make this look anything other than an ugly win, but it is a win. And I've seen a lot of people kind of talking about, should they be happy about the win? Should the team be happy about the win? And in my opinion, absolutely. Yes, you should absolutely be happy that your team won. I know it wasn't exciting. I know it wasn't the most thrilling game or the most thrilling way to win the game. I was talking to a friend earlier, and listen, I told them something that's kind of been rattling around in my brain. In some ways, this is almost the best way for the Washington Commanders to get their second win, because you go back to the Tennessee Titans, and obviously, a game that they should have won, a game that they had the opportunity to win. And if they do that, they do this. Now they're 3-3, getting ready for Green Bay coming out of the pseudo bye. If dreams all came true, that's exactly what could have happened. You wish it happened, but instead, this team is 2-4. It's fine. Look, the Green Bay Packers are beatable, and this team now has 10 days to really prepare, start getting game plans in order, getting a little bit of health, getting some rest, stepping away actually a little bit from the drama going on. I think will be beneficial as well. Come back rejuvenated. But the bottom line is, it is hard to win in the National Football League. So the Washington Commanders now 2-4, win over the Chicago Bears 12-7. In case you missed it, Chicago Bears fall to 2-4. So now the Bears and the Commanders both have matching 2-4 records. And I think that's really the bottom line is, no matter how talented you are, no matter how good you think you are or you could be, it is hard to win in the National Football League. Ron Rivera said it. Bobby McCain said it. I'm sure other people said it, but it's the truth. All right. For one, this league, the reason the NFL is king in this country is they have the best parity of all major sports leagues out here. They've been able to do that across the board. Whereas in the NBA, by and large, you have people kind of buying championships in baseball. I know a lot of people talk about teams buying championships. Hockey, I'm not as versed on as far as how they build rosters, but you get the idea, right? The parity in the National Football League is unmatched. The 32nd best team, so the worst team in the NFL, could, on any given Sunday, right? That's why it's a cliche, beat the best team if the conditions fall in the right way. The other thing I'll say is just the supreme athletes on the field. It takes a lot of talent to suck in the National Football League. We've talked about this before on this show in the past, and I'm not saying that any of these players specifically suck, but I'm just saying even a bad football player in the National Football League is a supremely talented athlete. So I think when you put all that in perspective, it's really difficult to get wins. So enjoy them when they come. And this team needed it. Like 1-5 with the loss to the Chicago Bears, guys. This conversation is a lot different. So no matter how you got it done, you got it done. And you look at the way they lost to the Tennessee Titans, ball, at the 2-yard line near the goal line at the end of the game with a chance to win. They come up short. Thursday night, the Bears have the ball near the goal line, last minute of the game, and they come up short. The defense is able to stand up for their team and secure the win. It's almost poetic, right? It's like literally exercising the demons of the games past, because it literally just happened last week. So that's kind of my overall take. Should you be happy about the win? Absolutely, you should be happy about the win. Should you forget all the other stuff and just say, okay, everything's hunky-dory now? No, absolutely not. It was still a very ugly win. Everybody's admitting that, the players, the coaches. But yes, you should still be happy with the win. It kind of reminded me, and this might sound a little weird, but go with me on this. It kind of reminded me of a child, right? So my wife has a saying that a child is never a curse, right, or a mistake type of thing. The baby is always beautiful, right? But let's be true. There are some ugly babies out there sometimes. There just are. But when you see an ugly baby, what do? Outwardly, you look for the redeeming quality. And you outwardly, that's what you compliment, right? You don't say like, "Oh man, that baby's filling the ugly feature. It really stands out." No, you swallow that and you put out the redeeming feature. So that's what we're gonna do here. It's kind of a reverse psychology type deal. We're gonna identify some ugly babies from this game because again, it was an ugly win. But we're also gonna look for the redeeming quality. All right, so go with me on this, guy. So we're gonna start with Carson Wentz. This is probably gonna be a regular thing. It just kind of hit me. Full disclosure, I am going on 6 hours of sleep over the last 2 days, so maybe this is a bad idea, but we're gonna roll with it. Let's see if we can have some fun with this, right? Carson Wentz, quarterback of your Washington Commanders, the ugly baby. In this scenario for Carson Wentz on Thursday night, 66.3 quarterback rating. Yikes. Less than 100 yards passing. Yikes. The redeeming quality, no fumbles, lost or otherwise, no interceptions. His first game with the Washington Commanders with no interceptions, no fumbles, lost or otherwise. So there's a redeeming quality in this game for you to look forward to. If this can become the pattern that Carson Wentz takes forward, should have more than 100 yards passing. And honestly, Curtis Samuel, right? You know, we love Curtis, but he had a little bit of a rough game. If he makes, at least the 2 catches that he dropped specifically, then Carson does actually go over 100 yards. And his QBR is higher because he has a touchdown along with some more completions. But that was Carson Wentz. So you got to get the rhythm of what we're doing here, right? So total offense, third down offense is where I'm going to hone in here. The ugly baby. Washington Commanders offense 2 for 11 on third downs. The redeeming quality, only 1 third down all night long was longer than 7 yards, and it was 10 yards. No third down plays for the Washington Commanders over 10 yards. That's the first game this season that they've had so many third downs be in the more manageable area. Every other game this season, even the win against Jacksonville Jaguars, 3rd and 13, 15, 17, 21, and multiple third and longs, 3rd and 10s. And longer. I know 3rd and 7 is still kind of long, but more like 3rd and double digits to gain. So didn't convert them. So that's that's the next step, right? You want to get them converted, but it's good. It's a good step in the right direction to have so many third downs, less than 10 yards to gain. Now we just got to get some plays drawn up to get them going. So flip it over to the defense. Kendall Fuller, the ugly baby, gave up the only Bears touchdown of the game, and it was a 40-yard touchdown pass to Dante Pettis from Justin Fields. The third time that Kendall Fuller has given up a particularly bad touchdown pass to an opponent. Fortunately, again, the Commanders get the win. The redeeming quality for Kendall Fuller's night, Justin Fields 2 for 5 targeting Kendall Fuller for the rest of the game and only 11 yards. So outside of that one pass, Kendall Fuller actually had a pretty good night. Holistic defense, explosive plays on defense. Run game was big for Chicago too. I kind of went back and forth, but the explosives have really been a point of emphasis, so I wanted to stay there. So the ugly baby pertained to the Commanders' defense and explosive plays. 7 explosive plays surrendered on Thursday night. Not what you want, but unfortunately has kind of been the trend. The redeeming quality, only 3 of those were passes. The rest were runs, and only 1 of those explosive passes went over 26 yards. So 20 yards or more is an explosive pass. Only 1 went for over 26. That was the 40-yarder to Dante Pettis against Kendall Fuller. That is the second fewest explosive passes allowed this season. So you see that secondary starting to step up a little bit. Honestly, with the absence of William Jackson, seems to be helping a little bit. I'm sure we'll get into more of that this weekend. But so that's kind of my ugly business. Look, if you guys like it, drop in the comments. Let me know if you want to see it come out again at some point in time. Hopefully you were able to follow what I was kind of doing there. I'm going to share my honest thoughts about Ron Rivera's honest thoughts on Thursday night's post-game press conference. But first, let's get honest about hiring practices. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. You want to be 100% certain that you have access to the best qualified candidates available. That's why you need to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the right people for your team faster and for free. And the best part is it's super easy to create a free job post on LinkedIn Jobs. Then after you create that post, you add your job and the purple hashtag hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile to spread the word that you're hiring. Simple tools like screening questions make it easy to focus on candidates with just the right skills and experience so you can quickly prioritize who you'd like to interview and to hire. Make sure you finish 2022 strong by hiring and finding the right team member to help you do that with your small business. Small businesses rank LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Segment 2 here on the Locked On Commanders podcast. Thank you guys for making us your first listener, your first view every single day. Make sure you check out the NFL Key Prediction Show every Friday on Locked On NFL. Locked On's local experts give you the inside scoop on the 5 biggest games of the NFL weekend, including Sunday and Monday Night Football, plus betting advice from the field's leading experts at Bet Online. Follow NFL Key Predictions every Friday on Locked On NFL, available on the Audacy app, YouTube, and wherever you get podcasts. I kind of combined my biggest story, right? The ugly win, but still being happy with the ugly win is kind of the biggest story with my offensive and defensive review with the ugly baby redeeming quality exercise that we just did there. But after the game, Ron Rivera had some things to say. The head coach had some things to say. So look, the press conference was almost 7 minutes long before Ron Rivera walked out. And if you haven't heard or seen the comments, I'm not necessarily going to replay them or air them here on this episode. I've written multiple articles about it on SI.com's Commander Country. If you just go to commandercountry.com, it's on Twitter. It's definitely out there for you guys to consume if you want to hear it for yourself or to read the quotes. But bottom line is kind of the quick version is Ron Rivera came in for his, every single game, post-game press conference to talk about the team's win. About 4 to 5 minutes in, the topic shifted to the off-field stuff going on with Dan Snyder, the continuation of that, and the report that came out Thursday morning from ESPN, and all that stuff that Chris did a really great episode on before the kickoff. So again, if you missed that, please go check that out. He kind of chronicles everything that was broken down. And you can kind of see the mood in Coach Rivera kind of shift as these questions about outside stuff and William Jackson supposedly reportedly requesting a trade out of the team. These types of things started coming up. And then eventually Matt Paris of the Washington Times just asked Coach Rivera and said, look, we've talked about this before. We've talked about Dan Snyder investigations, all this. And typically your demeanor about it is a little bit different right now. It seems to be a little bit more amped up. And he was just asking like, hey, is there a reason why it's amped up? And that's when Ron Rivera kind of just went off and the words, I'm going to be honest right now, or with you, and I'm paraphrasing right there, kind of started the whole thing off. And he just kind of went on this rant, guys, about how, the players are working their butts off and they're killing it. And they're, having to read all the negative press and hear all the negative comments, but then come to work and put in maximum effort and how proud he was of them. And then he kind of shifted also to Carson Wentz. And I think this kind of stems more from the ESPN article where, he's mentioned that people have talked about Ron not being in on Carson or not being one of the guys that wanted to bring Carson in. And he flat out refuted that, said that is BS, that he is the one who actually wanted Carson. He is the one who brought him up. He is the mastermind of this deal, and Carson Wentz being the quarterback, and that Carson, the man himself, the young man himself, as Ron put it, doesn't deserve all this outside noise and treatment and stuff. And I think the fact that it's dropping the morning of a game day, especially a primetime game day, you go back to the Eagles game, and similarly, there was the report of Washington apparently having a deal to trade for Jimmy G before the shoulder surgery became a thing. That dropped right before, Commanders Eagles. He faces the team that drafted him in the first round for the first time since being traded away. So you can call it a coincidence, you call it what you want, but there's somebody out there definitely putting stuff out to get into Carson Wentz's head. And I don't know how I feel about that specifically, but Ron obviously feels a certain kind of way, and he let it be known. He doesn't appreciate it. He doesn't like it. And he got very angry about it. And, and in his Friday press conference, Victory Friday press conference via Zoom, Ron, he didn't backtrack at all, but he kind of said, look, it got to him. He got frustrated, and that showed. Here's my thoughts about it, though. I actually like it. You know what I mean? And look, I'm not a veteran reporter, by any means. Like this is my first year doing it fully. Invested with a team as far as like going to practice on a weekly, daily basis, going to every single day of training. Well, I did spend a week in Tampa, but you get the idea. Typically, I'm one of those guys that, there's a lot of us out there who, I go to games and I might go to a practice here or there. I go to like a week of training camp, but I'm not there every single day, unlike I am this year. So far be it for me to tell anybody else how to do their job. And to be completely honest, it wasn't even really one of the regulars that kind of started the train here, but it did kind of continue after that. Ron, look, his team just broke a 4-game winning streak, right? And it's Thursday night, It's prime time. Everybody's tired, exhausted, stressed out, got a flight home to catch still. And then you've got Green Bay coming in just over a week. And originally, initially the questions were about the game. It was about the win. It was about the stress, the relief of having that win and getting it out and gutting it out, even though it was ugly. And Ron admitted, it was very ugly. They made a lot of mistakes. They got to clean up, but they were happy to have the win. Even had a moment there where Ron was asked about Carson Wentz throwing that block on Roquan Smith, the Bears linebacker, to help Brian Robinson Jr. get closer to the goal line, what ended up being his first career NFL touchdown. Carson, a big block on the linebacker to help get him close enough to set that up. And you kind of saw like a smile and like a moment of pride from Ron Rivera about his quarterback being willing to go out there. And he kind of said there's a toughness to Carson that a lot of people don't see and that he wishes that people saw more. Basically, right after that is when the tone of the questions started to shift. And again, this is where just personally, myself, the game just ended. I'd like to keep it to the game. And I'm not one of these stick to football guys. Okay, we've talked about Dan. We've talked about the investigations. We've talked about suspensions. We've talked about unfortunate incidences involving players off the field plenty of times on this show, Chris and I, and we will continue to do so because it is our job to give a 360 view of this franchise. However, and then again, this is just a personal opinion, on game night, especially after a win, breaking a 4-game win streak, maybe that's not the environment. Maybe we wait until the Monday Zoom, a Friday Zoom in this case, to bring that kind of stuff up. Let's let the game night be about the game. And I think that's what Ron was kind of getting at. And I kind of agree with that. Again, not something I would ever try to tell another reporter, hey, don't do this or don't do that. It's not my place. It's not my job. You know what I mean? And I'm not even saying that they're wrong for it. What I'm saying is I personally don't want to, I personally won't go about it that way. And I think that's kind of what Ron was trying to say is that he's got a locker room full of players celebrating a win, an ugly win, but a gutsy win, one that they had to fight out at the last second. And instead of talking about that, he's getting asked about William Jackson wanting a trade, who's not even in Chicago at the time, Dan Snyder, whether or not he should sell the team, stuff like that. And Matt's, look, Matt, it's interesting because Matt Paris is also the one who asked the question about what are the other NFC East teams doing that make them so successful compared to Washington? And Ron said quarterback and sat there and we're all kind of like, we're assuming there's more to that answer. Matt also asked that question, but he's not asking these questions trying to like stir up I know, a lot of people like to talk down on media and be like, you're just trying to get reactions out of people. Like Matt's not asking questions that are trying to get a reaction out of people. It just kind of happens that Matt's the one asking questions when Ron kind of overflows and spills out. But trust me, Matt is not out there trying to cause these things to happen, but let alone they're happening. But look, I see where Ron's coming from. And at the end of the day, I think at a minimum, even for the people who don't like it, and there are people who don't like it, and that's fine. That's their prerogative as well. I think what we should all maybe appreciate is the fact that you're seeing some fire from Ron Rivera and what I'm going to call fight back, right? Because a lot of people have criticized him for being too calm, too collected as this team is going through a whole lot of storms, and he's trying to keep that kind of steady tempo for his guys, I think. But honestly, I think it's good for them to see a little bit of, I don't want to call it a freak out, but a little bit of, bite back, fight back. So I appreciate it. I like the honesty. I might be alone on that. Let me know what you guys thought about it. And trust me, there's a mixed bag of reactions in the media room as well. What we don't all disagree on, I would hope so, is that we love handing out game balls because it means you won the game. So game balls coming up next, and we're doing those thanks to our friends over at betonline.net, your number one source for football betting this season. Find all the latest player developments, team matchups, news, podcasts, and in-depth articles and analysis on every game you can find, especially this weekend, because you ain't got football to watch. The Commanders already won. Victory Monday is already secured. That's down the line. Now you can watch the Cowboys, the Eagles, obviously, the Giants, hoping that they all lose or tie. A tie would help them as well when they're facing each other. As always, BetOnline remains your continued source for all your sports wagering information with live betting and up-to-the-minute scores for every sports out there. The fastest and easiest way to check in on all your favorite games and events, including Major League Baseball, MMA, boxing, and golf. Head to the betonline.net site or use your mobile device to learn more. BetOnline, where the game starts. Final segment here on the Locked On Commanders podcast. Time to hand out game balls, but real quick, guys, I know some of you, a lot of you maybe have gotten accustomed to our post-game live episodes. Really want to do it. I had all my gear. I lugged all my gear to Soldier Field to do the post-game live, and Washington Commanders PR tried to set me up with the space to do it. I will just say, look, the Bears staff, Good people. You know what I mean? I'm not trying to talk down on people, but not as effective as setting up with some space. So wasn't able to find the space to be able to do it. Had some complaints during the Cowboys post game about the background noise, so I decided not to do it in the main concourse, Soldier Field. Plus, it was freezing, and I didn't want to stand out there for 30 minutes doing a live episode in those conditions. So here now with this episode, actually, I was going to do this episode live as well, but like I mentioned earlier, 6 hours sleep in the last 2 days. Like, you know what? Let me not do this live. Let me record this so that when I inevitably mess up, and fortunately for you guys, you're not going to see the mess ups because I get to clean them up because since I'm recording this and editing it, you guys get a cleaner version of this production. So that's what you guys get now. So appreciate you guys being patient with us. But look, good news is, again, you've got all weekend to watch or listen to this episode. So we appreciate you for doing so. As always, game balls. I'm going to do this in kind of like the hockey fashion. I don't know if this is exactly how hockey does, but basically 3 game balls, and they're in order of presence. Game ball 1, game ball 2, game ball 3. Game ball 3 is like my big star of the game. So we're going to start with game ball 1. This one's a little bit more of an emotional game ball, but also an effective one because the game-winning score ended up coming from Brian Robinson Jr., the rookie running back who scored his first career NFL touchdown in his first career NFL start. Brian Robinson, a guy who, going back to the preseason, earned the starting running back job for the Washington Commanders, was poised to do that the day after the preseason ends up getting injured in a botched robbery attempt, misses the first 4 weeks of his career, came back last week to get his first NFL action, but got his first NFL start against the Chicago Bears on Thursday and his first career touchdown. 17 carries, 60 yards is the stat line, no targets. I do expect that to change as he continues to become a bigger part of this offense, and that touchdown ends up being the difference, the game-winning score for the Washington Commanders. So that's game ball number 1. Game ball number 2 is going to go to Coach Rivera, man. Look, and some people are not going to like that. I get it. This team is, you're still 2-4. There's still a lot to clean up. There's still a lot of issues on this team. Well, look, the team gave him one. So the team's going to give him one. You know what I mean? I'm not going to go against those wishes. I'm going to give him one as well. It's his first win as a coach in Soldier Field. That is significant alone. And yes, that is a purely emotional kind of, game ball. But I think that, we've seen the strategy. You guys know presidents, right? When presidents get elected, you look at them 4 years later and they've aged like 40 years in 4 years. Ron Rivera has been carrying a lot of stress, and, that's part of the job. I get it. He gets paid a lot of money to do it. I get it. I got all that. I'm not necessarily feeling bad for him, but I can have some empathy for him. I do have some empathy for him, carrying kind of the weight of the world on his shoulders right now with this team. But I think that honestly, everything coming out, especially the stuff coming out about Dan Snyder on Thursday, just kind of shows you why a guy like Ron Rivera is really needed for this team. You don't want a college coach. You don't want to bring Matt Rule in here, have all this stuff going on. I don't even, the guy who says it's not my job to pick a starting quarterback as the head coach. Like, I don't even want to know what you would do if all this other noise is going on around you. Game ball 3 is purely a game performance game ball. So, any of you who are mad about my first 2 having a little bit of emotional attachment to them will like this one. As John Allen. I mean, you talk about a beast mode performance from one of your defensive captains, defensive tackle, beat up and bruised, limping, injured. I mean, I don't know if there's a guy on the field who could use an extended bye week any more than Jonathan Allen at this point in time. Came through with 4 tackles, a sack, an interception, and a forced fumble against the Chicago Bears. And that interception is huge because, the Chicago Bears were going to get at least 3 points on their opening drive or a second drive of the game, rather. And who knows what that does as far as the tempo of the game is concerned moving forward. Shout out to, I think it was F.A. Obada's head who got in the way and led to John Allen's interception. But look, that's a big dude boxing out a lot of other big dudes. All right. So shout out to John Allen. Game ball number 3. And with that, that's going to wrap up this episode of Locked On Commanders podcast. We appreciate you making us your first listen or your first view of the day. Now make your second listen or view the Peacock and Williamson NFL show. Brian Peacock and former NFL scout Matt Williamson give you the expert NFL analysis in less than 30 minutes, free and available wherever you get podcasts. If you got questions or topics you want to discuss, we had some voicemails this week, guys. And I'm sorry we couldn't get to them. Crazy week with a short turnaround, and then with the Ron Rivera comment stuff and me traveling to Chicago and just a whole lot. I'm trying to make excuses, guys, but just a lot of stuff going on this week. But we're back to a normal schedule starting next week. So shoot those questions into us. Either at LockedOnWashingtonCommanders@gmail.com or call in and be a part of the show by dialing 301-615-3577. I'm David Harrison, writer for SI.com's Fan Nation, Commander Country. My co-host, Chris Russell of the Russell Medhurst Show on the Team 980, will be here Monday for you. However, he will be going solo. I have a rare opportunity to cover both of the teams that I cover for the network. So I was in Chicago Thursday night. I will be in Pittsburgh Sunday night covering the Bucks, or Sunday afternoon covering the Bucks and Steelers game there. So Chris will be going solo without me for Monday. So throw your questions in, send in your voicemails, hit us up on Twitter, however you want to contact us. In the meantime, if you're out and about, please be safe, be kind to one another, and thank you as always for joining me right here on the Locked On Commanders podcast.